Hi everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pastor Shane Explains. And today I want to answer a very important question. Did the Holocaust happen because of how the Jews treated Jesus? Did the Holocaust happen because of how the Jews treated Jesus? Now, the Holocaust, of course, refers to what happened during World War II. More than 6 million Jews were exterminated by Nazi Germany. It was a terrible time, it was a tragedy, and many times since then, people have wondered, is there some connection between how the Jews treated Jesus in the first century, the crucifixion, etc., and the Holocaust? It's a good question, and I think there's at least two answers to it. The first one has to do with history, and in particular Nazi history. I'm going to move quickly here, so follow me carefully. Nazi Germany was not a time when Adolf Hitler, for instance, could just snap his fingers and instantly anything that he wanted to be done could be done. It was that way for part of World War II, but before that time, no. Hitler had to come up with reasons for what he wanted to do. Hitler had a long-standing hatred for the Jews, and as he gradually got more and more power, he wanted to implement more and more of his ideas, shall we say, concerning how Jews should be treated. But to do that, he had to find ways to convince people. You see, in those days in Germany, there were many decent people. There were thousands and thousands of Christians even. And Hitler knew that if he just marched up and said, let's kill all the Jews or ban them from business or expel them from the country, there'd be a lot of people that wouldn't listen to it. And so he went searching for support, and he found it in probably one of the most unlikely places, at least from our perspective here in the 21st century. He found the writings of Martin Luther, at least the Nazi Party found the writings of Martin Luther, made Adolf Hitler aware of them, and they were used extensively. You say, well, what did Martin Luther write about the Jews? I thought he was one of the good guys. Well, for the most part, he was. In fact, early in his career, Martin Luther, back in the 1500s, one of the champions of the Protestant Reformation, he had some very positive things to say about the Jews. That was important back then. It's important all the time, but it's important back then in particular because in those days, lots of people just hated the Jews. Martin Luther's voice was actually a positive one in what was actually a sea of negativity. You say, well, what went wrong? Well, scholars have debated that to this day. Later on in Martin Luther's life, as he got within the last few years before his death, he had multiple physical problems. Some have speculated that perhaps they were severe enough they actually affected his brain. That's an open question. What we do know is this. Martin Luther wrote some terrible things about the Jews in his later years. Things that were so strong and so negative that, yes, they could be seen as supporting a very anti-Jewish perspective. Well, when people like Heinrich Himmler and other Nazis in the Nazi Party got a hold of these writings, they knew that they could use them to their advantage. You see, even in those years leading up to World War II, Martin Luther was still a fabulous hero of the people. And so if the Nazis could find something that Luther had written that was against the Jews, they thought they had struck gold, and sadly, they were right. They would read these things publicly. Martin Luther and Adolf Hitler were actually compared very favorably, tied together specifically by the Nazi Party and with all of their propaganda, their publications, and their public meetings. It was a sad, sad thing, and unfortunately, it helped to get the average German person to approve of being anti-Jewish. Now, to be fair, the truth probably is that most Germans were not aware of the extent to which Jews were being persecuted. They were not aware, the average German was not aware, for instance, of the extermination camps, but nonetheless, they were in favor of the anti-Jewish sentiment that was so popular in the Nazi Party. And indeed, Martin Luther's writings, here's the tie-in, went back to how the Jews treated Jesus. That's the first answer to this question. But there's a second one, and to me, it's the more important one. You see, some could say, well, Luther was wrong, and I would agree with that. And some might say, well, is there still some connection? And here's what I think they're getting at. Did the Holocaust happen because somehow God was getting revenge on the Jews for how they treated his son Jesus? I think this probably gets to the heart of the matter for most people that bring up this question. And blessedly, there is an answer, and I think I know what it is without any question. The answer to that question is no, emphatically no. God was not getting revenge on the Jews with the Holocaust because of what they had done hundreds of years earlier to Jesus on the cross. No, not at all. You say, well, how do you know that? The answer is simple. Jesus himself on the cross said, Father, forgive them. Not condemn them, not take revenge hundreds of years from now, but Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And this is a powerful statement, and so often it's forgotten. Jesus was God. God does not change. If God himself said, I forgive them, then who are we to somehow make a case that hundreds of years later, God essentially woke up one morning and said, forget all of what I said before. Let's take it out, all my revenge here on the Jews now in the Holocaust. That just doesn't make any sense, and I think it's completely false. Of course, that brings up the question, well, why did it happen? Why then did the Holocaust happen? We don't have time today to answer that question. In a future edition of Pastor Shane Explains, we're going to talk about what does evil in the presence of a good God mean, and how can these terrible things happen? But we'll have to save that for another time. Until then, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Pastor Shane Explains.